Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on Life. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So we're about to celebrate the festival of Pesach, Passover. What happened on Passover? Of course, on the first night of Passover, that's when God, as it says in the Torah, came out over Egypt and killed all the firstborn of Egypt. The next morning, the Israelites, the Jewish people, the entire nation, all few millions of them, left Egypt as free people. Eventually, 7 days later, they find themselves trapped. What happened? God had told them to make a U-turn and go back. And this was all to entrap Pharaoh and his armies. Eventually, we know the greatest miracle of all time, the splitting of the sea. And after the Jews, the last one of them, left the waters from the other side, that's where the Egyptian army began to enter. And as they came in, the waters, which were standing like walls, congealed walls of water, came crashing down on them and brought their end. Now, there is an amazing Midrash that tells us what took place at that very moment, what took place in the higher heavens up above. You see, by the time the Egyptians were dying in the waters, the armies of Pharaoh, who had so brutally and so terribly afflicted the Jews, oppressed them all this time, and now they were here pursuing them with this desire to kill them, to wipe them out. And they got what they duly deserved. Still, the Midrash tells us that in the heavens, at that point, as it was close to daybreak, the angels in heaven they were getting ready to do what they were accustomed to doing at that time. And that is saying their shirah, their song, singing their songs of praise to God as a new day opens up in the world, thus a new day in heaven. God, Hashem, silenced them. And he said the following, as the Midrash quotes, Masei yadai tovim bayam va'atem omrim shira. The work of my hands, my creations, are drowning in the sea, and you say song and you say praise? This is not a time for it. I appreciate the fact that you want to say praise, but not in this moment. What does this teach us? What does this tell us? And in fact, the virtue of the fact that we know about this, that we're privy to what happens in heaven, this is not just to give us some amusing, interesting facts of what goes on up there, but rather this is part of Torah. Torah means directive. Torah means instruction. This tells us how to live our lives, what our attitude should be. This tells us that even when it's necessary and totally imperative to do away with the enemy, there's no other choice. And yes, the enemy has to die. The enemy gets hurt. The one who's coming to kill you should be killed first. And even if it's Hashem doing it, it's not a happy time. You don't glee. You don't rejoice. This is not a time for celebration. In fact, it's very, very sad and tragic for all parties that it has to come to that. Our attitude as Torah observant people as to what's going on now as the state of Israel is trying to defend themselves and to protect its borders, to protect its people. And unfortunately, many have lost their lives in this fighting, in this attempt of theirs to cleanse the territory of all the Hamas operatives. Of course, there are those who scream genocide. No, it's not a genocide. It's a measure of protection. Sadly, in any war, there's collateral damage, especially in this one, in which the Hamas intentionally put up human beings, their people, as human shields, knowing good and well that this will serve their PR purposes. And for them, the blood of their fellow people, their fellow citizens, means nothing. And sadly, that's why it's come to this. In fact, we saw the accounts. We saw the actual footage of them not allowing people to evacuate. Israel had to set up a corridor to protect the people who wanted to evacuate. But this is not about politics. This is about attitude. What is our attitude and perspective? It hurts. It is sad. It is not something to rejoice. No one, and I don't believe you've seen any whatsoever accounts of people in Israel shooting up rifles into the air in celebration of the fact that this building crumbled, or that building crumbled, or that this person was killed, or that person was killed. Anytime a human life is taken away, it is sad, regardless of the circumstances. And I'll conclude with this. The only woman prime minister of Israel thus far, once in an interview, stated the following. When she was asked, could you forgive? Is there any room in your heart to be able to forgive for all these atrocities, for all this terrorism and so on? And you know what she said? She said, yes, I do have room in my heart to forgive. I could at some point forgive them for having killed our young, but I will never be able to forgive them for having forced us to kill their young. That is the attitude of one who goes in the light of the Torah.